It's 2023, which means it's time to dive in and take a look at the graphic design trends for this year. Last year, we began to see the rise of AI in the creative world, including creating art, illustrations, photography, and even writing things using AI. So that might get you thinking, well, how is that going to influence trends now coming up? Are we going to see AI growing more and more? Is it going to start to influence design trends and the way that we approach design? Well, we're going to look at all that and more in today's video as we dive into the graphic design trends of 2023. So as I said, last year, we started to see the rise of AI in the creative world. Now, I think this is going to influence graphic design in two different directions. So we're going to see the embracing of AI, where we're going to see people using more technologies in their designs. They're going to use, AI imagery and graphics, or they're going to be, inspired by AI designs and then create something new out of that. And, utilizing it also with their own work and sort of mixing things up, and also using emerging technologies, people that are really embracing the new technologies when it comes to creating and designing. Then in the other direction, we're going to see people also trying to rebel against it. We're going to see more analog style designs, things that look very human, things that look more handmade, and that we're using analog bits and pieces like bits of paper and textures, things like that. So we're really going to see two different directions emerging. So a lot of these aren't very restricted styles where, if it doesn't work for your brand, you just have to write it off. They're more things that you could maybe integrate in different ways into your own branding and still stick with your own brand style. Now, I wouldn't use trends when it comes to actually core branding, things like your logo and stuff like that, but you might be wanting to mostly use trends when it comes to social media, because that's something that's very quick and fast and always changing. It's something that's only short-lived, and so it's a great way to test out different things and create something that's very trendy and now, obviously keeping in line with your own branding and style, because you don't just want to, constantly creating completely different things and confusing people. You can be integrating some of these things into your graphics and your marketing to, mix things up and stay on trend and just create more dynamic design. So these trends I'm sharing with you, I see them more as the trends for social media and small businesses. So these are the kind of things that we're going to mostly be seeing in those areas. So first of all, the new tech trends. So as I mentioned before, we're going to see more AI being used. So this includes AI art and illustration being used in people's graphics. Instead of spending hours going through searches trying to find the right image, if you want to really explain something and find that perfect image that really depicts what you're trying to talk about, instead of trying to scroll through millions of images trying to find the right one, you can just type into an AI exactly what you're looking for and it can generate that image. And so we're going to be seeing it used a lot for those sort of instances. So this will be, if someone's creating content and they want to illustrate what they're talking about, they might use an AI image to be able to illustrate that, so they're not having to try and find that perfect image that's going to fit, but they can create it themselves. And then also things like presentations, so things like webinars and other kinds of presentations where someone's trying to use some sort of illustration to show what they're talking about. I think that's where it's really going to be a very useful thing. Then we have 3D design. Now 3D design has been around for a long time, but I think more and more people are learning how to use it. It's starting to become a little more mainstream and more accessible. It's still a technology that not every single person knows how to use, but you will find that you can find 3D graphics that you can use easily. So you can go on a site like Creative Market, you can go in Canva in their Elements tab, and you can find 3D graphics that are already made that you can use in your design. So if you want a 3D look to it, you're not having to actually create something yourself. There are more things available now to you, so you can have that 3D look without having to create something completely from scratch. 3D design is really fun because it adds extra dimension to a design, and it also still feels fairly new, and it makes your design stand out a bit because not a huge amount of people are using it. So it's a great way to really add that wow factor, because it's something that not the average person feels like they can do. But as I said, it is becoming more and more approachable, so more people will start to be using it. Our next new technology trend is motion. With video on the rise and more video being pushed in the world of social media, we're also going to be seeing more animation and bringing things to life in that motion sense. So if you're not necessarily wanting to get on camera and creating a video of something in real life, you can also be creating videos and motion through motion graphics. So we will probably be seeing more people animating their logos, more people creating animated graphics, things like that, because it brings a design to life. It's a lot more interesting and dynamic than just, basic flat still design, and it really adds an element of fun and surprise to a design. There's also more and more tools out there to create video. There's plenty of apps. You can do a lot more with Canva now. There's lots of different ways to create motion graphics and videos that I think it's something that we're going to see people experiment and play with and try out more and more in their graphics. And now we're on to the nostalgic trends, so a bit of a rage against the machine. So our first one is New Brutalism. So this style is very reminiscent of the early days of the internet. It's very black and white, uses a lot of text and lines and shape, things like that. It actually originates from an architectural style, but in terms of graphic design, it's very reminiscent of those early internet days. And I think that time period of the 90s and early 2000s is very much a trending era that people are taking a lot from in terms of the fashion world and things like that. That it's another way that we're pulling from those eras into design. It's a very strong and bold style, and it can be quite playful and fun as well. Next we have Collage, which really feels handmade. It feels like someone's gonna cut out bits from a magazine, put them on. It feels very human and sort of creative and put together, not something that a computer has just whipped up. It feels more handmade and crafted, and it's really creative. So it's a way of sharing a mixture of ideas. So if you're trying to communicate a lot of different things, if you're trying to show a lot of different products, things like that, collage is a really fun way to do that because you can mix up different imagery and sort of bring it together in a really cohesive and fun, which again goes back to a very nostalgic feel, because these days people aren't just going through magazines like they used to, they're consuming their content mostly online. So again, we're pulling that nostalgia of that, that magazine feel, that handmade kind of crafted feel. Next we have font mixing and creative fonts. So rather than just using a single font for a piece of text, for a word or a sentence, mixing up fonts within one thing. So this feels really creative and fun. It's very playful, and again, it feels like this push against computers, because a computer just wouldn't mix up all these fonts in one word. It feels very human because, it's very erratic and it's playful and creative. It's this element of breaking the rules, because a computer is more likely going to stick to the rules and create something that goes according to rules and guidelines, whereas it's this element of rebellion and, breaking the rules and being more creative. Next we have analog design, which sort of sums up a lot of the ones in this area of rebelling against the machine. So just this idea of using real things, so like scanning bits of paper and having scribbles and hand-drawn notes and things that aren't computer generated, even if they actually were generated on a computer, but it has that feel that it's really analog, that it's part of the real world rather than something computer generated. Then in terms of the photography being used, we're also seeing more grainy and film type photography being used. So again, going back to that analog feel, feeling like it's created with film and giving it more texture and things like that. So we're giving that more analog feel and feeling less like it's digital and computerized. Then another one when it comes to photography is the layout. So we're starting to see a lot more layering going on. So things like photos on top of photos. So really giving things a lot more layering and dynamicness. It's sort of similar to the collage too. So lots of layers with things. And then we have texture, which we sort of saw a lot of when it came to the analog style and that layering of collage and layering of photography, this use of texture in design. So really integrating texture with things. So really making things feel more rich and textured. So this could include things like papers and paints and different things that are going to add these textury feels to make things feel a lot more dynamic and rich. So that's the graphic design trends for 2023. I'd love to know which of these trends do you think you'll be integrating in your graphics. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.